Our tale unfolds within a legendary clan of swordmasters who hold dominion over half the known world, the prestigious Runandell family. This is a lineage where every member is born with a powerful physique and prodigious talent, allowing them to rule the lands for generations. They command with overwhelming might, living by three core virtues: combat, conquest, and control. This law of the jungle is their entire existence, and into this very family, our protagonist, Jyn Runandell, was born as the youngest son. During the pivotal selection ceremony that foretells each child's destiny, Jyn made a bold choice, selecting the patriarch's own sword. He was hailed as the child destined to one day lead the clan, a sentiment his father echoed upon seeing him choose the legendary blade. His father found his choice of the sword, Barasada, quite intriguing, and Jyn himself believed his future was paved with nothing but glory and success. However, destiny had a cruel twist in store. As it turned out, he possessed absolutely no talent for the sword. Jyn was quickly labeled a disgrace, a failure who fell laughably short of the lofty standards set by the Runandell name. He became known as the single worst swordsman in the family's entire history, a fact his own brothers relentlessly mocked him for. They'd sneer at him practicing with a wooden sword, claiming he was utterly unworthy of Barasada, while Jyn could only stand in humiliated silence. To know why he was so quiet, brutally kicked him in the gut, ordering him to answer his great siblings as Jyn collapsed. Clutching his stomach in agony, he reached for his blade, only for his brother's foot to mercilessly pin his arm to the ground. "There's no point in you even training," one sneered, as another, holding a notebook, mockingly asked what he was reading. He scornfully questioned if Jyn actually believed some book could teach him the swordsmanship he so clearly lacked. The blonde brother declared Jyn was a nobody, entirely undeserving of a chance, as if he believed he could be magically reborn as a warrior. He explained that giving a chance to someone like Jyn only makes them forget their place and cling to false hope. When Jyn questioned their cruelty, one of them yanked him up by his hair, claiming this was all for his own good. They even taunted him about his nanny's teachings, but Jyn ignored it all, focusing only on his desire to try harder. He was determined to one day, somehow, earn his family's respect, and with that burning spirit, he forced himself back to his feet. He wanted to prove himself worthy of the clan, but sadly, there was no sudden power-up waiting for him. He was just beaten down again by his siblings. They spared his life, but Jyn was ultimately cast out, reduced to a vagrant until he finally crossed paths with his future teacher. It was then he discovered he did possess a talent, a power forbidden by his clan, almost as if he were reincarnated with a new purpose. He had the power to wield magic. 3 years passed, and while Jyn was diligently studying, he was abruptly consumed by shadows. Turning, he found himself before a colossal entity named Solderet, the master of shadows himself. It turned out to be a fortunate day for our protagonist, for he had been chosen by a literal god to enter into a contract. This pact would grant him the power of shadow and immunity to all curses, which led to a surprising discovery by the shadow god. Solderet noticed Jyn had been cursed since childhood, which is the classic scenario where the reborn Manhwa hides its hero's true potential. The curse, known as Blades Delusion, actively suppressed any talent for swordsmanship, a virtual death sentence in the Runandell family. The god of shadows shattered the curse, declaring that Jyn would now become a swordsman of unparalleled ability as he is returned to his world. Back to his quarters, he immediately grabs his sword to put this new theory to the test. When he executes a flawless swing, he realizes Solderet wasn't just spouting nonsense about his potential. He's acquired an incredible mastery over his sword. The clan's worst swordsman then pushes further, channeling magic to amplify his abilities even more. Finally, all the grueling work he had put in was bearing fruit, or so he foolishly thought. In a brutal turn of events, we see a grievously wounded Jyn, who was ambushed and utterly defeated. In his last moments, he was powerless to fight back as his life slowly faded into oblivion. As he lay crushed beneath the rubble, Jyn desperately wondered why he was reincarnated just to fail again. The world went completely black before he opened his eyes again, stunned to see his clan members standing before him. More shocking still, he was in the exact same sword sanctuary where the Barasada was waiting. The much younger Jyn remembers this very day, realizing he's been sent back more than 20 years into his past. The boy, now reborn with the knowledge of his future, clutches the sword, earning the admiration of his family. This time, he chose the weapon of his own free will. 6 years after he chose the Barasada, he was still so small he couldn't reach the top shelf. He has been trapped in the Storm Castle for some time and must endure another 3 years before his freedom. The boy feels like a prisoner, a feeling that intensifies when one of the maids lets out a horrified scream upon finding a dead bird in his room. Jyn quickly sizes up the situation, knowing only 2 individuals could be behind something so cruel and brazen. The 2 people in question are his snickering brothers, a pair of brats with zero respect for life. Deatona is 9 years of age, while the white-haired menace, Htona, is the same age. While they laugh maniacally over the poor bird, a deep sadness envelops Jyn. He remembers that these 2 clowns grew up to become murderers in his previous life. Right now, they're merely children, yet they've already killed a helpless animal just to taunt their brother. This wretched pair knows no boundaries. They are trying to provoke Jyn, mocking him for not being able to properly wield the Barasada. Jyn is about to speak when Htona lunges at him. When his punch is easily deflected, Htona is left dumbfounded because Jyn is done playing games and immediately launches a powerful counterstrike to his face. He gives Htona a lesson in pain that he won't soon forget. And even though Jyn is holding back immensely, he still effortlessly overpowers his brother. Finally, our protagonist leaves his bratty siblings with a stern warning to never cross him again. Khan arrives on the scene, shocked to see that Jyn has defeated both of his brothers. Jyn coolly explains that they fought each other, which is why they're in such a sorry state. Of course, this is a complete fabrication, but Khan still wants to get them to a doctor. However, Jyn sternly forbids him from doing so. Instead, he takes them somewhere else. Jyn leaves them at the mercy of a raging storm. It may seem like a cruel punishment, but he feels it's necessary to teach his brothers about the consequences of their actions. Khan lacks the authority to defy the young master's orders. Strangely, however, he detects an unusually sinister aura coming from the young master. Khan speculates that Jyn must have used mana, realizing that Jyn himself is the one who took down his brothers. With them out of commission, Khan feels it is his duty to report this to the clan's patriarch. Back at the Storm Castle, Jyn watches the snitch make his move. He knows Khan is their guardian and that he reports everything to the patriarch. Jyn correctly deduces that Khan must have sensed his shadow force, the true origin of the power this Manhwa hides within him. A pact with the god of darkness, which implies that even as a reincarnated soul, his latent powers of darkness are fully active, granting him immunity to the curse he bore in his first life. No longer bound by that curse, Jyn has rewritten history and will never again be known as the worst swordsman, a fact he relishes. His next hurdle, however, is a direct confrontation with his father, the patriarch. Following Khan's report, the patriarch instructs the guardian knight to assemble the flag bearers, sensing the need for a personal meeting with his son. With all 200 knights of the Runandell family prepared, the legendary patriarch of the Runandell family begins his imposing march back to Storm Castle. Mary is stunned they were given such an abrupt order to assemble. Dias, her fellow flag bearer, is equally clueless, as they were in the middle of a ferocious battle when the call came. Dias speculates it might have something to do with Jyn, though they can barely fathom why it would be necessary for the patriarch to see his youngest son. Luna interrupts them, gesturing for silence, but Mary remains curious, as she fails to see what all the fuss is about regarding Jyn's abilities. Back at Storm Castle, a maid informs Jyn of his father's impending arrival. The young boy wonders what else the guardian knight might have told his father. He suspects his father is curious about the power he wielded, a power this reborn Manhwa hides from the world, as it is different from both mana and aura. This meeting is essential to decide whether Jyn's powers will be a boon or a bane to the clan. The patriarch arrives with his legion of knights, his exquisite blade at his hip. He demands that Htona and Htona be summoned at once. After they appear, he directly questions them about their failures. The brothers try to play coy, answering that they did nothing wrong, claiming Jyn was the one who attacked them with a strange, magic-like power. But of course, they are only weaving these words to set a trap for their brother. This level of manipulation, however, is not enough to sway the patriarch, as he leaves both sons with some cold advice. Their survival in the clan will be short-lived with such a feeble mindset. Having dismissed them, he then demands that Jyn be summoned. Jyn stands before his father, Jyn Runandell, the head of the family and its strongest warrior. So powerful, in fact, that he is classified as a divine star knight and a demigod. Having reached such heights of power, Jyn's human emotions have been severely dulled. The only passion he has left is an obsession for his clan's greatness and prosperity. In his original life, Jyn was treated like a complete nobody, with nothing to offer that could impress his father. But in this life, the boy walks with confidence and a steady stride, knowing he can no longer be so easily dismissed. He makes his entrance as the flag bearers stare at the boy, who kneels before his father. Jyn questions why his son addressed him as patriarch instead of father. The boy replies that he felt it was proper to address the head of the clan with due respect. The divine knight then proceeds to ask the same question he posed to his older brothers. Clenching his fist, Jyn responds that their true mistake was their failure to take revenge. He champions the core principle of the Runandell clan, to always seek retribution, no matter the relationship. Hearing these words, Jyn commands the knights and the flag bearers to leave the chamber. They are all astounded that Jyn passed the patriarch's test. Mary is particularly impressed that her little brother has earned himself a private meeting with his father. The door slams shut as Jyn finally confronts the topic of magic, reminding Jyn that it limits their potential for achieving sword mastery. The patriarch pointedly questions the origin of Jyn's abilities, stressing that punishment is certain if the answer is mana. Weighing his options, the boy realizes he is in serious trouble if he reveals that the source of his power is the god of darkness. So, Jyn claims that he doesn't understand his own abilities either, and gives his father a small demonstration of his power. In a shocking turn of events, it's revealed that Jyn's abilities were once wielded by the founding patriarch of their very own clan. Jyn immediately recognizes the Shadow Force, astonished that his son can not only handle Barasada but also command the Shadow Force. He starts to wonder if Jyn is destined to be the next patriarch. Curiously enough, Jyn is already aware of the god of shadows. He explains that Solderet once made a pact with Tamar, the clan's first patriarch, which fueled their rise to power. But after his passing, the god of shadows never again appeared to offer his powers to a Runandell, not until the birth of Jyn, who now wields the Shadow Force. Curious, Jyn asks his father a pivotal question. He wants to know if the god of shadows is more powerful than even him. Jyn considers it for a moment and replies that he doesn't know, as he has never fought a god. However, his words are laced with immense confidence, the kind only the most powerful man in the world could project. Jyn appreciates the question and pats his son on the head. He is proud of the boy and asks how Jyn plans to use his new powers. The boy confesses that he will use them for the prosperity of the clan. Kieran just laughs, seeing right through the boy's deception. He knows his son is ruthless, having not only beaten his brothers but also left them to face the fury of a storm. That sort of answer was a clear misstep on Jyn's part, so this time, he gives an honest answer, declaring that he will use the Shadow Force for himself. Kieran isn't upset by this answer. In fact, he praises the boy for it. He decides he will observe him in the days to come. With that, the intense meeting between father and son finally comes to an end. Jyn is left exhausted but proud of the result. He no longer has to worry about concealing his powers, a classic plot point where a reborn Manhwa hides its hero's true strength. So, this is a great outcome. Remembers just how insignificant he felt in his original life. But now that he was reincarnated, things were finally changing for the better in this new life. That night, his older sister Mary brought him a special parting gift. She had prepared a special meal for him, though Jyn can't remember her ever being this kind. When he opens the box, he discovers the burning heart of a phoenix inside. It's an insane present to give a 7-year-old boy, but Mary is just that kind of unhinged. She is a flag bearer and a 6-star knight. She has many titles, but perhaps her most notorious one is the Mad Woman of the South. Basically, she's your typical sweet-looking girl, but on a whole other level of intense. This gift is an invitation for her brother to get strong quickly and challenge her one day. Eating a phoenix's heart is incredibly beneficial, as it grants total immunity to fire and massively accelerates a person's growth. Jyn wonders if he can become strong. Jill brings him the soup she had meticulously prepared, but before he could even take a single bite, Jin's 2 bratty siblings were already salivating over the meal. They desperately wanted a taste for themselves, but were too proud to admit it. In a classic trope where a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides its hero's true cunning, Jyn saw right through their intentions and offered them a chance to wolf down some soup in exchange for a small favor. But that favor turns out to be a grueling task, as both Htona and Deatona are forced to start digging a massive hole in search of something mysterious. But these 2 goofs are willing to risk it all for a bowl of soup. Little do they know what truly rests beneath the surface is an ancient incubation chamber, containing the body of an enigmatic figure shrouded in pure darkness. After an immense amount of effort, digging, the brothers are finally finished. They drag themselves back in a sorry state, ready for their well-deserved reward, only to find that Jyn has already devoured most of the soup, leaving them barely a teaspoon's worth to share. This kid is an absolute savage. While his siblings are fuming over his devious tactic, Jyn calmly arrives at the excavation site they prepared for him. He's genuinely impressed by their handiwork, confident that a simple spell will be enough to break through the remaining barrier. Jyn feels a thrill of excitement, finally able to use his mana to shatter the final layer of earth. And there it is. The secret library of the Runandell clan, a place that this reborn Manhwa hides from the unworthy, and a place that was kept completely hidden from him in his original life. A special passcode is required for entry, and because he's been reincarnated, Jyn feels confident as he utters the phrase meant to console Murakhan. Just as he remembered, the door creaks open. It's said that after dominating the world, the Runandell clan began preserving the relics of their vanquished foes here. Access to this sacred area is restricted to only the chosen flag-bearers of the family. And in his previous life, he'd learned the secret phrase from Dais, a piece of knowledge that has now unexpectedly served him well in this one. But even Jyn is taken aback when he lays eyes on a shadowy figure preserved inside a large capsule. Noticing the creature's scaly skin, he begins to wonder if it's even human at all. Then it hits him with the force of a thunderclap. This is the legendary dark dragon Murakhan himself. According to the ancient legends, this very dragon was defeated by the first patriarch of his clan before it fell into a profound slumber. Jyn now stands before a living myth and begins his search for the ancient texts he came for. After locating the scrolls, he immediately dives into his research, hoping to uncover the secrets of the Kungan clan. The ancient script, however, proves far too difficult for Jyn to decipher. He considers taking the book, but that would risk him getting discovered. Instead, the resourceful boy pulls out his materials, deciding to painstakingly copy the content. His new routine became studying at home and transcribing from the secret library. But one day, his clandestine operation became incredibly complicated when someone else decided to visit the library at a most unusual hour. And this isn't just any random person, it's the dark dragon Murakhan, who is suddenly awakened from his long sleep. Jyn struggles to remain calm, knowing this legendary beast is technically an ally of his clan. He attempts a polite greeting, addressing the creature as dragon, but this only serves to infuriate the beast, who viciously roars at the young boy. Murakhan is enraged at the thought that he's been reduced to a mere guardian for the Runandells, and he sulks about his humiliating predicament. The dragon reveals the only reason he awoke from his slumber was because he sensed a familiar power emanating from the boy. Murakhan is stunned to discover the remnants of shadow force lurking deep within Jin's core. He claims that such a distinct aura could only belong to a contractor of soldier, meaning there's absolutely no mistake. Seeing an opportunity, Jyn decides to test his luck, shocking the ancient being with a brilliant display of his power. The mighty dragon stammers in disbelief before collapsing in utter defeat. He's absolutely crestfallen to realize that the newest contractor is just a little pipsqueak. Murakhan is devastated as he begins to explain that he once made a solemn promise to the god of darkness, and because of that ancient vow, his new partner is, unbelievably, Jyn. The dragon decides to save the full explanation for later. Instead, he decides to give the boy a proper introduction, and the legendary monster begins to manifest into its true and glorious form. He is Murakhan, an age of the god of shadows, and the very last descendant of the shadows, who made an oath a long time ago. A pact made millennia ago is now fulfilled. The colossal beast pledges allegiance to the boy, his one and only contractor, as Jyn introduces himself as the youngest scion of the Runandell clan, offering a formal greeting to the fabled dragon. The very mountain supporting the storm castle, it turns out, was named after this legendary dragon who had ruled these lands for thousands of years, before a fateful clash with the first patriarch of the Runandell clan. However, it quickly becomes apparent that their battle wasn't born of true enmity. You see, contractors of the gods are always appointed a guardian dragon, which explains the long-standing mystery surrounding the dark dragon's disappearance. No one knew he was simply lost in a profound slumber. With the dragon now awake, Jyn can't help but wonder if he has just gained his own guardian. Fortunately, the dragon's human form allows them to converse, and Jyn seizes the opportunity to clear up some lingering questions. In the following months, Jyn became a permanent fixture in the library. His primary goal was to uncover the true reason behind the historic battle between Tamar and Murakhan. The comically forgetful dragon can't seem to recall the specifics. What he has discovered, however, is an all-consuming obsession with strawberry pies. Between pie breaks, Jyn explains that he's been meticulously creating copies of the library's original texts, though unfortunately, he doesn't understand most of the complex content. Still, Murakhan is deeply impressed by the boy's sheer perseverance, noting that any ordinary child would have given up ages ago. Jyn humbly dismisses the praise, claiming he's merely average by Runandell standards, with a dozen older siblings and incredibly powerful parents to live up to. Jin's ambition, however, is immense. He aims to surpass them all. This leads him to wonder just how much Tamar understood at the same age, given that he is hailed as the strongest man in recorded history. Jyn was naturally curious about where he stood in comparison. The Dark Dragon shatters that notion, stating that even a prodigy like Tamar couldn't have comprehended a single sentence at such a tender age. Tamar's strength wasn't forged from books. Murakhan then emphasizes that Jyn possesses an almost unnatural talent, as if he's been *** reincarnated *** with prior knowledge. He declares the boy has insane talent, much like the first patriarch himself. Jyn then questions if his own power will ever compare to the legendary flames of Tamar's might. Murakhan offers encouragement, telling him to focus on training and growing stronger with time, assuring him he can one day rival and perhaps even surpass the strengths of the founding patriarch. To shift his focus, Murakhan decides to share a fascinating tidbit: Solderet's second name. The god of shadows is also known as Solderet the Infinite, a name this *** reborn Manhwa hides *** until now, because his power is boundless. This directly implies that the boy's own potential is practically limitless. Spurred by this, Murakhan decides to teach the boy a new technique, a powerful attack known as the Shadow Force release. This is a critical skill for any master of the Shadow Force, but it also carries a significant risk for its user. So Murakhan sternly advises the boy to master it perfectly. He begins the lesson by instructing Jyn to release his mana, but Jyn is understandably confused. Murakhan clarifies that two fundamental skills govern the Shadow Force release. The first is mana release, and the second is mana transfer. Mastering these basics typically requires at least 3 years of dedicated practice, a timeline far too long for the ambitious boy, but Murakhan refuses to teach the advanced application without the fundamentals in place. But then, Jyn completely stuns him by executing a perfect mana release, a feat which honestly resembles a Nen blast from another universe. To add to the shock, he also demonstrates he can use mana transfer for some inexplicable reason. Murakhan is left speechless. He's just realized he's dealing with an absolute genius of a pipsqueak. With both prerequisites miraculously met, he is now ready to demonstrate the actual skill. Shadow Force release. He explains that since all shadows originate from Solderet's power, the god is the ultimate master, and Jyn is his one and only contractor. As dark shadows flood the library, Murakhan reveals the ultimate truth. Jyn himself has the potential to become the master of all shadows. The shadows. Jyn can't help but be impressed, witnessing the sheer power of his magic on full display. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the clan's flag bearer, his sister Luna, who is on the verge of completing her mission. With an estimated 4 months left, Luna stands surrounded by the corpses of monsters, pondering the perfect gift for her younger brother. This takes place 6 months after Murakhan finally awakened, and Htona and Deatona had departed the castle upon coming of age. Now, only the young master remains, receiving a celebratory cake from Jill for his 9th birthday. Being the kind-hearted boy he now is, he insists on sharing the cake with everyone. But then, Khan the Snitch makes an abrupt appearance, offering apologies for the sudden interruption. He announces that Lady Luna, the young master's older sister, has arrived for a personal visit. As the very first flag bearer of the clan, an exceptional knight, and the eldest of all the siblings, Luna Runandell is undoubtedly the most powerful among the heirs. She stands apart from the others, completely uninterested in following the path of the patriarch. In his first life, Luna had been cold, treating him like a complete stranger, and showing no concern for her siblings. So, it's incredibly strange that this distant sister has suddenly appeared. Jyn can't help but wonder if something major has happened within the clan. He even fears she might have discovered the secrets of his past life, the kind of truth a reborn Manhwa hides, or at least his secret trips to the library. But then, Luna gently pats her little brother's head, showing him an uncharacteristic kindness and even asking about his well-being. Jyn admits that he feels wary around his sister. Luna correctly guesses that her brother sees them as enemies, believing she views him as just another rival aiming for the throne. The thought clearly frustrates her, and she moves to console her baby brother. Luna then apologizes, kneeling down to show her little brother proper respect before asking to speak with him privately. Jyn is completely taken aback by this request but meets her with a composed smile. Once they are alone, Luna reveals she rushed home for a matter of great importance. It seems that since Jin's sudden rise in prominence, the rest of their siblings have been keeping a very close watch on him. This implies they are likely to act against the boy the moment he leaves the safety of the Storm Castle. This once distant sister now expresses her genuine fear that Jyn might lose his happiness in the crossfire of their family's brutal politics. She confesses her deep hatred for the Runandell clan's traditions, and her words make Jyn realize why she abandoned the path of the patriarch. Yet, she never spoke a word of this in his past life, a key detail for anyone who has been reincarnated. He wonders if, in his original life, he simply wasn't worthy of hearing such comforting words. But he understands now it's also because his sister is genuinely worried that their siblings will make a move against him very soon. Jyn carefully formulates his response, making it clear he won't back down from the inevitable fight against his brothers. Luna quickly emphasizes that this warning is not for her own benefit, but entirely for his. Her baby brother acknowledges her concern and then drops a bombshell. He has already faced an assassination attempt once before. Faced with this shocking revelation, Luna's terrifying power erupts around her, absolutely furious that someone dared to harm her brother right here in the Storm Castle. She demands the assassin's name, but Jyn calmly tells her that he doesn't know who it was and that he is perfectly fine for now. The boy feels a surge of happiness, realizing he has finally earned the empathy of at least one of his siblings. Overcome with emotion, Luna embraces Jyn, apologizing for the terrible burden their family's traditions place upon them as members of the Runandell clan. Being held by her like this, Jyn realizes he never knew his sister could be this kind. Not wanting to ruin his birthday celebration any further, Luna offers him a proper gift. It's a beautiful blue pendant. She instructs him to turn around, explaining that the necklace holds the power to summon her one time from being shattered. A gift for Jyn to use should he ever find himself in a perilous situation. Luna is overjoyed to celebrate her brother's birthday, and they share a heartwarming celebration together. Regrettably, her duties call her away, and she must bid him a fond farewell. Later on, Jyn makes his way to the library, necklace in hand, completely astonishing Murakami. You see, this necklace is an invaluable artifact that once belonged to the Demon Beast King himself, an item so legendary that countless warriors have risked their lives to obtain. It grants its wearer immunity to lesser spells while simultaneously amplifying their own magical power. Jyn calmly explains that the pendant was a gift from his eldest sister. What truly stuns him, however, is the realization that Luna likely sensed Murakami's presence already, yet she keeps it secret from the clan, prioritizing her little brother's safety and well-being above all else. Returning to Luna's perspective, she suspects something is going on between Jyn and Murakami, but ultimately chooses to place her faith in his abilities and support her little brother regardless of the path he takes. Jyn, a reincarnated soul, had initially thought the first 10 years of his new life would be uneventful and tedious within the castle walls. Yet, in this brief period, he's learned an immense amount, receiving gifts and profiting from the relationships he forged with incredible people. These were the very connections his past self could only have dreamed of. At long last, the day arrived when the young boy turned 10 years old. He engaged Khan in a fierce sparring session, making his final preparations to depart from the castle. The boy's astonishing strength for his age left the guardian knight deeply impressed, finally understanding why the patriarch maintained such a keen interest in the youngest child. Jyn, in turn, observed with the critical eyes of an instructor, assessing whether Khan was truly a suitable teacher for him. As they concluded their training for the day, Khan offered his profound respect to the young master, acknowledging he could only train the boy until his departure from the Storm Castle. Jyn stands ready to exceed all expectations. A pivotal moment arrived when Jyn began to feel immune to flames, a direct result of the phoenix's heart he received from Mary. He is ecstatic to discover that some of his latent powers have begun to manifest. It's now only a matter of time before he fully absorbs the phoenix's incredible abilities. Jyn is scheduled to leave the Storm Castle the very next day. Jilly notices his collection of books and is instructed to pack them for his journey. As is his custom, the boy requests a strawberry pie for his snack before heading out for a walk at a rather peculiar time. He soon arrives at the hidden library for his meeting with Murakami. The ancient dark dragon had been anticipating this very day. Jyn can't help but wonder how they will maintain contact, but the dragon dismisses it as a trivial concern, even in his currently weakened state compared to his original form. Murakami clarifies that his own strength will be restored as Jyn grows more powerful, for he is, after all, a guardian dragon. Murakami expresses his wish for the boy to grow up to be just like the legendary Tamar. This prompts Jyn to ask a crucial question about his clan. Solderet once told him that the Runandell clan possesses a hidden history as a clan of magic swordsmen, with the first patriarch being renowned as the greatest magic swordsman in all of history. However, this truth is a secret this reborn Manhwa hides, lost to myth as the clan now exclusively prioritizes pure swordsmanship. Their aversion to magic stems from a solemn pact that was forged 1,000 years ago. And while they once revered Murakami as their guardian, it's painfully clear they would likely despise him in the current era. It's a true shame, as the boy would have been showered with riches for awakening him in a bygone age. Then again, considering the sorry state of his clan, that might not have happened anyway. Murakhan confidently assures him that he will keep track of the no matter his location. As for his capsule, his plan is to leave behind a convincing illusion of himself, an illusion so potent that no one will be able to see through his ruse. However, this phantom image isn't going to last for an extended period, as it relies on the dragon's diminishing power. Nevertheless, Murakhan intends to sustain the illusion right up until the moment Jyn reaches adulthood. For the occasion, Jyn has brought Murakhan a special celebratory treat, and the Dark Dragon is absolutely delighted by the prospect of indulging in drinks and joining the festivities. He's even willing to befriend Jill if that's what it takes to get more of her famous strawberry pies. As Jyn gets ready to depart for his clan's ancestral home, he's warned about the incredibly demanding life that awaits him. While Jill can no longer prepare her delicious meals for him, she reaffirms her vow to serve him whenever the need arises. For his journey, Jyn is formally greeted by his escorts, the Guardian Knights Jerome and Holtz. With that, their travels officially commence, near the end of the 18th century, as Jyn finally departs the Storm Castle, bound for his family's estate, the Garden of Swords. Along the way, they are confronted by a sudden and heavy snowfall. Unfortunately, such severe weather conditions make it impossible for them to use a transportation portal. All at once, the carriage lurches to a halt, and both Jerome and Holtz urgently command Jyn to remain safely inside. Their transport is under attack, but Jill remains utterly confident in the capabilities of the 7-star knights tasked with guarding them with their very lives. The problem is, they are severely outnumbered, facing a daunting 20 assailants to 1. It is then that Jyn has a critical realization, and he immediately tells Jill they must escape, because this whole situation feels like a plot twist. A reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides their guardians have betrayed them. This means they are either in league with traitors or are imposters themselves, which also suggests the carriage has been compromised. Jill, infuriated by the treachery, unleashes her full power to protect Jyn in the name of the clan. At that moment, the carriage explodes as they make their harrowing escape by a razor's edge. Jill immediately tries to take full responsibility for the incident, but Jyn is quick to remind her that more important matters are at stake, beginning with the startling possibility that the people attacking their supposed knights might actually be their allies. Jyn finds it highly suspicious that their pursuers allowed them to get away, casting serious doubt on their ultimate intentions. It turns out, the Uda clan, along with sorcerers from the Mel Kingdom and members of the Black Mercenary Group, have all gathered to guarantee the young master's safety. After locating the pair, Vice Captain Mirka explains that his primary duty is to protect Jyn. Meanwhile, Jerome and Holtz are struggling mightily against their opponents. This is because they are complete fakes who are not even close to being 7-star knights. As the real protectors surround them, one of the imposters defiantly sneers that he won't say a single word to a mere Runandell servant. Jyn, ever the pragmatist, coldly commands that one be killed to persuade the other to speak. Instantly, Jill charges forward with incredible speed, cutting down one of the men with her razor-sharp attacks. With him dispatched, she then precisely severs both arms of the second imposter, causing him unimaginable pain. With both of his arms now gone, Jill stands as the clear victor of the confrontation and drags the man before Jyn. Their enemies had clearly underestimated Jill's protective instincts and power. Despite her role as a maid, she is a loyal and formidable 7-star martial artist. Whoever planned Jin's assassination should have sent far more powerful knights to do the job. The defeated man, now limbless, warns them that the age of the Runandells will soon come to an end. Shockingly, Jyn agrees with him. This is because Jyn is entirely focused on making a name for himself rather than upholding the legacy of his family, the clan. Under pressure, the imposter spills his allegiance to Zipfel, a powerful sorcerer clan that governs a vast portion of the world. The Zipfels are the sworn rivals of the Runandell clan, obsessed with achieving ultimate mastery in magic. Following the death of Timar, their clan coerced the Runandells into signing a pact that forbade the use of magic, a treaty designed to ensure all of the family's magical abilities would be permanently sealed away. For over 1,000 years, the Zipfel clan has stood as the Runandells' most bitter enemy. This pathetic imposter is clearly just one of their pawns. Deeming him useless, Jyn leaves Gilly to handle the cleanup. The man pleads for a quick end, but Jyn is not in a merciful mood. Instead, he contemplates the true motive behind such an audacious attack. Crucially, the young boy suspects this was the work of a Zipfel extremist, not an official act by the clan itself. What's even more telling is that Gilly was completely deceived by their disguise. This implies another party is involved, orchestrating this dirty work from the shadows. The boy then offers his sincere gratitude to the vice captain of the Knights for saving his life. He promises to report everything to his clan so the man can be rewarded appropriately. Murakhan is taken aback. This 10-year-old boy speaks with a wisdom far beyond his years, not at all like a normal child. Reflecting on the boy's mature words, Murakhan wonders if Jyn truly possesses the drive to become the greatest. He then instructs his men to conduct themselves properly around Jyn. With that settled, it's time to resume their journey. When questioned about the imposter, Jyn declares that he wants his body left as a stark reminder to their enemies. Unfortunately, they now face a 2-hour trek on foot to reach the nearest village. Jyn insists that Gilly shouldn't bear the blame for what happened, pointing out that even Khan, a formidable 9-star knight, was unable to see through their elaborate deception. Nevertheless, Gilly is deeply troubled by the incident and apologizes profusely to the young master. In the Runandell household, a nanny is solely responsible for the well-being of the child in her care. Gilly was the same for him in his past life. a secret this reincarnated soul kept locked away. But back then, she was unfortunately scorned for being assigned to the supposedly talentless boy he was tasked to raise. Gilly's kindness was boundless. She never once blamed Jyn for his perceived failures. She was cast out from the clan on the very same day he was. And even then, on that fateful day, she apologized for failing him. She was the only person who had ever shown him true devotion in his entire life. Now, Jyn wants to ensure she is prepared for the challenging future ahead. The woman can't stop blaming herself, prompting Jyn to take a frustrated tone and emphasize that she is the only knight he truly trusts with his protection. Later, Gilly reflects on the young master's sharp words. She recognizes that his intention was to stop her from feeling guilty. Fortunately, his words have the intended effect, and she resolves to perform at her absolute best to impress him. Upon arriving at the village inn, Jyn deduces with near certainty that the infamous Transfigurator was involved. His past knowledge, like a secret a reborn Manhwa hides, points to one man, Bubar Gaston, who specializes in wielding a draconic ability known as transformation. His skill in this art was so profound that it surpassed even that of actual monsters, enabling countless crimes to be committed across the world. Jyn knows that with this man's involvement, things are about to become significantly more complicated. He vividly remembers Bubar's reign of chaos finally ending with his arrest in his previous life. The reincarnated boy now wonders if he should attempt to recruit the man in this timeline, despite having been nearly assassinated by one of his schemes. The day's events leave Jyn utterly exhausted, and he collapses into his bed. Gilly gently tucks him in. When Jyn finally awakens, he assumes his grueling training regimen is finally taking its toll on his young body. He then notices an annoying cat loitering around his window. It then dawns on him that this ridiculous feline is none other than Murakhan. The legendary dragon had turned himself into a common house cat to shadow him across the globe. Murakhan, absolutely furious, lets out a hiss. Jyn reluctantly lets him in, but his patience is wearing thin with the dragon's antics. He shifts into his human form to lecture Jyn, but with his typical clumsiness, the oaf immediately stumbles right into the desk. Hearing the crash, Gilly instantly bursts in to check on Jyn, only to find the intruder. She's poised to eliminate this stranger before our young master can even utter a single word. But then, a memory flashes in Murakhan's mind. It was Gilly who baked him those divine strawberry pies. In that moment, he realizes he's just hit the jackpot. Meanwhile, Jyn is internally screaming, seeing his life flash before his eyes. He decides honesty is the only way out of this mess, and introduces Murakhan as the guardian dragon of their clan. Gilly is completely floored and immediately apologizes for her aggressive posture, but more pressingly, she's baffled as to why he just called her strawberry pie. Gilly soon discovers that all this time, Jyn had been secretly commissioning those pies for Murakhan. Following a lengthy explanation, Gilly is stunned to learn that the young master can wield magic and even holds a contract with the god of darkness. Surprisingly, she's incredibly supportive of his hidden talents, which is precisely why Jyn chose to confide in her. He stresses that his connection with Murakhan, 311 0小时30分40秒000大于0小时30分46秒000 as well as the true origin of his abilities, it had to remain hidden like a secret a character in a rebirth-themed story would keep. At first, she trusted the Guardian, but after seeing his constant awkwardness, her confidence began to waver. Gilly starts to question if relying on this dragon is a wise decision. Soon after, they arrive at the portal, where Murakhan's escort duty officially ends. He's genuinely excited to see the kind of person Jyn will become. Murakhan then turns his curiosity to Gilly, wondering why such a skilled martial artist would leave her own clan to serve the Runcandles. However, she refuses to divulge any details and simply departs with the young master. The staff at the Mel portal quickly realize they are in the presence of high nobility from the esteemed Runcandle family. They are immediately granted access to first-class seats for an expedited teleportation. Inside, Gilly voices her concerns about Jyn's magic, noting there's no plausible excuse to explain it to the Runcandle clan. The young master affirms his intention to keep the source of his powers a complete secret. Suddenly, his eyes land on a noble mage from the rival Zyphel clan, who is also being escorted to the first-class section. This noble openly sneers with disgust at them, but then his gaze falls upon the cat, and he seems intrigued. In a flash, Murakhan acts like a total boss and slashes the arrogant noble, putting him in his place. The Zyphel noble is taken aback, surprised that Jyn remains so calm and silent despite his inflammatory comments. 321 0小时31分39秒000大于0小时31分47秒000 The man introduces himself as Veridine and extends a hand. Jin's mind races. He recognizes this man from memories of a life he once lived before. Veridine was destined to become a prodigious sorcerer and a prime candidate for the next patriarch of the Zyphel clan. Even though Jyn also possesses a talent for sorcery, his own gift paled in comparison to Veridine's. The boy is immediately wary of him and reminds Veridine that his guards were moments away from drawing their blades, an act for which they could have been executed. He serves up an equally provocative remark disguised as a jest, but Jyn makes it crystal clear he wasn't kidding. Veridine feels a genuine chill run down his spine from the boy's intensity, but advises him not to incite conflict between their two powerful clans. Jyn counters, claiming that both their fathers are men of immense stature who would never plunge their families into war over a mere squabble between children. Veridine is visibly impressed, but Jyn is essentially dressing him down verbally. He then tells him to remain silent for the duration of the portal journey. Verdine finds himself almost captivated and feels a strange desire to befriend Jyn, but knows it would dangerously complicate their clan's relationship. So instead, he vows to make Jyn his ultimate rival for the years ahead. As for Jyn, he's inwardly surprised that Verdine is keeping his composure so well after that verbal lashing. What a joke. It's as if the Zephyls are all chaotic and utterly unhinged. The teleportation sequence is now underway. Just before being transported, Verdine expresses his sheer excitement about meeting Jyn again, but our protagonist certainly doesn't share that enthusiasm. In fact, he'd prefer if that opportunity never arose again. At last, Jyn has arrived. He's met by Petrov, a second-class butler of the household. The butler addresses him as Your Grace, formally welcoming him to the Garden of the Swords, the very heart of the Runandell family's estate. The Garden of Swords is a hallowed sanctuary of blades, reserved for the most legendary members of the Runandell family. To have one's weapon enshrined in this garden is the absolute pinnacle of honor for a Runandell. Jyn once shared this very same ambition, but back then, the weaknesses of his past life had rendered him naive and foolish. Now that he has been *** reincarnated *** with a cunning and strategic nature, Jyn is certain things will be different. He believes he'll have a much easier time navigating the treacherous family dynamics. The boy then meets his mother, Rosa Runandell, whose attendant Saren is alarmed by the cat he casually picked up along the way. However, the very fact that he so boldly claims ownership of the animal is viewed as a quality of pride. Jyn has decided to name him Kitty Runandell, but this name is considered deeply offensive by his brothers, as it's an animal, completely undeserving of their prestigious family name. Saren demands to know why he did it, and the boy counters that he wishes to take full responsibility for the Canis cat, a creature he has officially claimed as his own. He intends to ensure it is well cared for, even though the Runandell name is a heavy burden, as Jyn will now be honor-bound to seek revenge should anyone dare to bother his pet. The patriarch seems impressed by the boy's incredible ability to make enemies so quickly, with his own siblings being no exception. Jyn emphasizes that he never shies away from taking his enemies down. His father appreciates this kind of ruthless attitude and hopes his older siblings stay sharp and never underestimate him. 4 years have passed since that day. Jyn is now a 14-year-old, officially classified as a 2-star knight. His training session with Garen has just concluded, and his next is scheduled with Luna. Jyn has no desire to share lunch with his family, much preferring to eat with the cats instead. A boy named Velop has brought him his meal. He's a commoner on the verge of being expelled from the clan. The true potential this future villain in the *** reborn Manhwa hides *** is not yet apparent. For now, he's just a calm boy who constantly praises Jyn's mightiness. Our protagonist tells him to abandon the path of humility, as it only causes others to look down upon him. Jyn encourages him to take some pride in his abilities, reminding him that he is a Runandell cadet after all. Velov sulks, complaining about his low grades and how his swordsmanship is complete trash. Jyn points out, however, that simply becoming a cadet of the Runandell clan is a monumental feat in itself. He might have the worst grades among them, but that still makes him far superior to the average person. Jyn genuinely wonders how such a meek and introverted boy could transform into such a dangerous enemy in the future. He remembers. Even worse, he recalls that Velop ended up taking his own life. Another cadet's life might face a similar end, so Jyn wants to prevent that future from ever occurring. This time, he's hellbent on making sure Velop stays in the clan. Later, the young master assesses his current abilities. He knows he is destined to reach 3-star swordsmanship within the next few years, but for now, he must train with Luna, who wants him to execute the training completely differently than he did yesterday. Luna suggests that he use his mind's eye to visualize his training. She explains that acquiring the mind's eye is the greatest weapon a swordsman can possess. It's a form of high-level meditation, a skill that is typically only achieved by 7-star knights. Jyn is completely baffled as to why he's being taught such an advanced skill so early on. Luna forbids the use of aura during their training, a method Jyn finds baffling, but he places his complete faith in his older sister's guidance and sharpens his concentration to master the technique just as the training session concludes. Luna reflects that Jyn's level of focus is unheard of for a knight of his standing. It's almost as if he's a reincarnated soul with prior experience. It's only a matter of time before he unlocks even greater power. The scene then shifts to a sparring session, a pivotal day for Jyn. If he can defeat all 10 cadets, he will earn his place in the intermediate class. While the young master exudes confidence, his friend Velop is practically a nervous wreck. The coach lays out the rules. The cadets will spar 3 times each against different opponents, and only the top 10 fighters will earn the right to challenge Jyn. As the competition kicks off, every cadet showcases an impressive degree of swordsmanship. Once the 10 challengers have been determined, the rest are dismissed as Jyn steels himself to face them all. Remembering his personal best was defeating 8 fighters consecutively. However, Jin's greatest concern is Mesa Mokano, the undisputed top cadet. This first match could decide the entire outcome. She lunges at him in a flash, and Jyn barely manages to parry, instantly sensing she's grown even more powerful since their last encounter. The true challenge is that he still has 8 more opponents waiting after her. Mesa is baffled by his use of basic moves, a simple strategy that this reborn Manhwa hides in plain sight. She expected complex variations and suddenly realizes Jyn must be looking down on her. Insulted by this perceived disrespect, she surges forward to unleash her true power. Mesa is now dead set on defeating the young master. She commits to a decisive strike, but Jyn shatters her blade, emerging as the victor. Mesa is left in utter shock, realizing Jyn had been precisely striking the exact same spot on her sword, causing it to weaken and ultimately shatter. Their strength and stamina were evenly matched, but it was his pinpoint precision that crowned him the winner of the fight. Humbled, Mesa declares she will train relentlessly to impress him in their next duel. Though he still faces 9 more cadets, Jyn is glad to have defeated his toughest opponent, instilling a sense of hopelessness among the rest. He proceeds to swiftly defeat the 10th and final cadet, successfully completing the challenge. As his reward, he will join the intermediate class next year and receive proper training from a Jyn Runandell. But even though the official challenge is over, Jyn announces that he wishes to fight one last cadet. He then shouts Velop's name, calling his friend out for a duel. The introverted and terrified boy refuses initially, but Jyn bluntly reminds him that his days in the clan are numbered if he continues this cowardly behavior. Jyn then declares his intention is to completely crush Velop in this fight. Shuffling nervously onto the field, Velop can barely muster the confidence to even hold his weapon. He wonders if this is some sort of punishment from Jyn, who then taunts that this should be an easy match for Velop, considering Jyn is exhausted after fighting 10 cadets. But even so, Jyn boasts that he can still overpower the weakling. Without another word, Jyn lunges forward to pummel him into submission. Velop is just barely able to block the ferocious opening attack, and Jyn is secretly impressed by his parry. Velop desperately tries to defend, but Jyn shows no mercy with his relentless assault. He's putting him through hell, pointing out that his last attack could have easily been fatal, before offering him a second chance to prove himself. As Velop rises again, his demeanor completely changes, and a brilliant golden aura, a power this reborn Manhwa hides until the climax, envelops his body as he prepares to unleash a lethal attack. Witnessing this transformation, Mesa screams to Garen that Jin's life is in imminent danger. The young master issues a strict command that this duel must remain a secret, pushing Velop to finally channel his aura and elevate his power. Velop surges forward with everything he has, convinced he can overwhelm the weakened Jyn, and while Jyn manages to block the attack, the force of the blow shatters his blade completely. He had always been aware of Velop's hidden potential, much like a hero from a *** reincarnated *** tale, but Jyn was utterly unprepared for this talent with aura. Even without a weapon, Jyn instinctively counters with a devastating slam, catching his opponent off guard. He traps Velop in a headlock, but then, in a surprising act of mercy, he lets him go. Jyn decides to be transparent with his friend. He admits that he never wanted to fight him under these circumstances, and despite knowing little about Velop, he wants to see him become strong. He needs him to build that strength upon his inherently kind heart, because within their clan, simple kindness is not enough to ensure survival. In a rare moment of gentleness, the young master encourages Velop to find his place among them by becoming powerful enough to protect his own beliefs. When lunchtime arrives, Jyn takes the initiative to fetch them both a meal, a task that Velop usually handles. Seer is left in a state of shock upon receiving a report from Khan detailing Jin's newfound consideration for Velop, and his father is incredibly proud of the boy's development. He is ecstatic about his son's growing ability to look after those weaker than himself and decides the boy is finally ready for his first official mission. In the first month of the year, 1795, the boy celebrated his 15th birthday, earning a promotion to a 3-star knight and a brief vacation from training. The intermediate class had graduated to using real swords instead of wooden ones, and each blade was meticulously handcrafted for every cadet. This meant that some, including Jyn, had to have their weapons specially made, and nobody was more thrilled about this than his sister, Luna. She had practically begged him to let her choose his weapon, and her baby brother had ultimately agreed. He trusts her judgment completely and believes she will find the perfect sword for him right up until she presents him with what can only be described as a gigantic greatsword. Even Jyn is stunned into silence by its sheer size. Luna explains that she once used a very similar weapon when she was his age. She even reveals that this sword is the prototype she designed for her own main weapon. Jyn, however, is having a very difficult time accepting this choice. He respectfully declines the weapon, a decision that clearly wounds Luna's feelings. Seeing his reaction, Luna decides to go with a different option. She vows to find a weapon that perfectly suits his distinct fighting style, a choice she had clearly been contemplating for some time. Remembering how he chose the Barasada when he was just an infant, she determined that the legendary Bramante would be the ideal replacement. It is the very weapon wielded by the first patriarch of their clan, a blade that is one of their most valuable treasures and one that Jyn finds immediately to his liking. Jyn had always hoped to one day earn this weapon for himself, but he is more than happy that Luna has offered it to him as a gift. Both swords are exceptionally powerful for wielders of the Shadow Force. It's a profound truth, this *** reborn Manhwa hides *** from outsiders, and the fierce sibling rivalry in the clan would have made it impossible for him to obtain it otherwise. It truly is a heavenly gift from Luna, one he acquired far more easily than he ever imagined. She tells him he has no need to repay her in any way. Luna admits she is fully aware of the defensive posture he maintains around her. Still feeling slighted, she instructs her brother to prepare for another training session. She tells him to close his eyes, reminding him that the siblings of the Runandell clan are fated to constantly fight against one another. But even with that harsh reality, she wants to reaffirm her unwavering love, promising that Luna is ready to support him no matter what happens. Luna shares these words because she vividly remembers the immense loneliness and feelings of isolation she endured before Jin's time. She hopes with all her heart that her little brother never has to experience that kind of emptiness in his own life. With that settled, they return together. Training session. Following their practice, Jyn eagerly presented his new weapon to Murakhan, who was far from impressed. He considered it a poor match for his current abilities, explaining that the boy must first achieve a certain level of mastery over his shadow force to even begin to unlock Bramanthi's true potential. As it stood, Jyn was simply too weak, though he ambitiously hoped to reach 3-star mastery in his shadow force very soon. Murakhan, offended by the boy's sheer arrogance, stressed the immense caution required when attempting to wield the Patriarch's sacred weapons. He scoffed at 3 stars, advising Jyn to aim for 5 stars instead. But Jyn, ever the defiant child, refused to wait that long, boldly hoping to hit his target by the following year, a claim that only served to infuriate Murakhan. Pushing his buttons further, Jyn snatched his book and threatened to tear it to shreds. Fortunately, Jill arrived just in time, informing the boy that Garen wished to see him for a briefing on his very first mission. Jyn was taken aback by the news. His first official assignment was set to begin right after their break concluded, and while he was pleased, he also couldn't help but question the timing of it all. Jilly noted that these missions were notoriously difficult, even for the intermediate-level cadets. Now thoroughly intrigued, Jyn decided to discuss the matter directly with Garen and entered the room to meet him. He soon realized the full scope of the task. He was to lead a mission with 10 novice-class cadets, who would be divided into groups of 2. Their primary objective was to scout the treacherous border region of the Jyn Kingdom, an area typically considered far too dangerous for cadets at the beginner level. Jyn knew this would be a grueling challenge, especially considering his teammates were practically useless. The boy couldn't shake the feeling that his father had orchestrated these punishingly strict conditions, and he began to wonder if Velop was somehow connected to this scheme. Regardless, Jyn was more than prepared to demonstrate his capabilities to the Divine Star Knight, ready to prove that his resolve was stronger than steel. 4 days went by, and the team was now on their mission to rescue Simber of the renowned Bill family. They wasted no time, taking the initiative to establish a base camp near the border, from which they would commence their operations. A different group would be dispatched each day to relay information back to their main camp. As the appointed leader, Jyn demanded his allies address him accordingly. He mandated that anyone who was injured would be given ample rest to ensure the overall success of their mission. Jyn soon learned that there were no werewolves in the vicinity, leaving him impressed by the accuracy of Velop's insight, who was serving as their information liaison. The group leader then pushed the search forward into Area 13, yet something about the mission still bothered him deeply. Although he knew his father had a hand in this assignment, everything was proceeding almost too comfortably, too smoothly. He began to wonder if his intuition was wrong, questioning what secrets this reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides. The land beyond Area 13 was known as the Land of Half-Men, a perilous territory far exceeding the capabilities of novice cadets. Jyn was aiming for a clean victory, not one that would needlessly exhaust his resources. Suddenly, Velop appeared, bringing a startling new development. Jyn received the alarming report that Group 2 had been overwhelmed by an enemy attack. He instantly prepared to mobilize, learning from Velop that they were ambushed by 3 human assailants. He knew it was possible there were even more than 3 enemies out there. Jyn ordered his subordinates to fall back to the base camp immediately. He would lead the charge himself, determined to deduce their intentions. Countless questions were now swirling in Jin's mind, but one thing was certain: he was prepared to exact his revenge upon the enemy. The sight of blood sends Velop into a panic, fearing the absolute worst for Mesa's group. Jyn, however, remains composed, noting the absence of any bodies, which offers a sliver of hope. He speculates that it might be the work of a single assailant, a theory that gains weight when he discovers a discarded, bloody bandage. With this crucial discovery, he deduces that the second group must have altered their path after sensing another threat in the vicinity. He orders Sierra to go with Eddington and David, while Jyn himself decides to pursue Group 2 with Velop. They manage to locate them, only to find them mid-battle, with Mesa nowhere in sight. He immediately commands Velop to attack the enemy on the left, while Jyn coats his own weapon with Shadow Force, dramatically increasing its destructive potency. He launches the blade, instantly executing one of the assailants. As for the second, Velop charges forward with his attack, but Jyn is even quicker, appearing from behind to slash the enemy down. With that, both attackers have been swiftly defeated. Jyn then learns the grim news of Mesa's capture. He presents the surviving assailant with 2 choices, both of which spell his certain doom. This terrifying 15-year-old is utterly ruthless. Jyn promises to hunt down and eliminate every single person the assailant has ever known. The man, not wanting his family to face such a grim fate, breaks down. He spills all the information, revealing his connection to the Kinsella faction, a notorious terrorist group. They were the ones responsible for assassinating the king of the Jyn Kingdom in the original timeline, all under the false guise of a revolution. Their secret intention is nothing less than to conquer the entire world. Jyn presses him for details on their ultimate goal. Unfortunately, the assailant is merely one of their underlings, so he lacks detailed information about their main base. He does, however, know of a different base. This secondary location supposedly houses 20 martial artists and sorcerers. For his final question, Jyn demands to know why they specifically kidnapped Mesa. He learns that their orders were to capture the female cadets for some overarching political objective. After receiving this information, Jyn makes his move. He lands the killing blow, refusing to show a shred of mercy to his enemies. A full hour has now passed since Mesa's capture. He instructs his subordinates to request support after they've healed, declaring that he is prepared to tackle all 20 assailants himself. His comrades are vehemently against such a rash decision, wanting to provide him with their assistance on what is clearly a dangerous mission. Jyn emphasizes that it is his duty to protect the people of his clan, and the immense confidence he has in his strength to complete the mission is a power this reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides from the world. He refuses to entertain any objections to his direct orders and instructs Velop to be in charge during his absence. With that, the group leader dashes off to save Mesa, hoping he can reach her before it is too late. Jyn knows he has to defeat highly competent enemies. The odds are stacked heavily against his current skill level. It's true that he's strong, but he's not yet strong enough to defeat all of them. Not alone, at least. Therefore, his plan is focused solely on rescuing Mesa rather than defeating his opponents in a head-on fight. Jyn activates his detection magic and cleverly pairs it with wind detection for an even greater effect, allowing him to precisely uncover the enemy's tracks. Jyn continues his high-speed pursuit when he is suddenly ambushed by a group of assailants. The young master of the Runandell clan, however, has a surprise for them. He shocks them with his uncanny ability to cast magic spells. He defeats one before his hand is trapped by a mage. Unfazed, Jyn slashes another assailant from behind and remains completely unaffected by the flames thanks to his innate immunity. The mage desperately deploys ice magic to try and beat him, but even that is rendered utterly ineffective against this monster. Defeat is now certain for them. As the sorcerer meets his end, Jyn wonders if the assailants are underestimating his faction simply because of their beginner-level status as cadets. Experience. He understands the Cancelo hierarchy and knows that Mesa won't be harmed until she reaches the officer. It's the only glimmer of hope he has to save Mesa. Jyn intends to distract his enemies and casts flame magic to do the job. This will make them focused on the fire while Jyn executes his next move. He comes to their base slowly, waiting for his enemies to make a mistake. Jyn spots their leader, who knows there is a culprit responsible for the fire. Unfortunately for him, Jyn strikes him down when his men are far away. He obtains the keys and busts open the captivity room. There he discovers a trapdoor and sees Mesa at last. She's shocked to see him in such a dangerous location. Jyn frees her, but suddenly the entire structure begins shaking. Mesa begs to be left behind in case the situation gets difficult for them to escape. Jyn cares less about that and focuses on saving Mesa. After coming outside, he comes to terms with a horrifying revelation. A half-man has just killed a bunch of enemies unexpectedly. This terrifying monster is none other than the White Werewolf. Jyn knocks Mesa unconscious so she doesn't do anything rash. The werewolf questions if Jyn is responsible for the flames. Jyn introduces himself as the son of the patriarch and stands to face the werewolf, who is impressed to find an underling of the Runandell clan. Many days before the mission, Jyn was trying to master his weapon, but Murakhan always jumped him for being absurd. He warned him against preemptively activating the sword and overloading his body. Much to his annoyance, Jyn stopped his pursuit. In the present, he is faced with his most difficult threat. Kwazu Truba is a warrior-class creature of the White Werewolves race. These monsters are born with the desire to slaughter their enemies. They're formidable creatures capable of defeating 6-star knights, and they bear a special hatred for the Runandels ever since Tamur killed their god. Jyn is in a real pinch. He has no way of safely delivering Mesa with this guy on his tail. The only way out of this situation is through. The monster questions if the Runandel will fight him head-on or choose to cower and run. Jyn answers that he will fight with honor. This response triggers Quasito to burst forth for an attack. He uses his giant sledgehammer to crush Jyn. Fortunately, he evades the strike, but only momentarily. Jyn is overpowered by the monster's immense speed and strength. He's barely able to stand his ground, but thinks there's a chance as long as he can activate his secret weapons. Jyn doesn't want to risk the use of Luna's pendant. He desires to reach the top by overcoming this difficult challenge. Lower-level magic against such an opponent is useless against the defenses of werewolves. There's also the risk that his secret powers will be discovered by other people. His only weapon in this case is the Shadow Force. Jyn desires to awaken the sword, or else he will lose this fight. The monster is impressed by Jin's weapon for being durable in a fight. However, Jyn is still on the back foot. Clutching the sword in his hands, he tries to activate its power. Then, suddenly, in a beam of light, comes the ascension of the blade that blinds the werewolf's sight. A decisive slash cuts through the air. The monster falls to his knees, having suffered a major wound to its belly. Jyn declares the end of the fight, standing at top as the victor, the undisputed victor of the battle. However, the sword's sinister drawbacks begin to consume his very being, just as Murakhan had warned. The horrors of a life he barely remembers, haunted voices from within his soul, start to devour him from the inside out. Murakhan materializes before the struggling boy, reminding him of the steep price for unsheathing such power prematurely. As the shadows completely overwhelm his body, Murakhan urges him to fight back and take his stand, warning that failure means losing his consciousness for all eternity. Jyn desperately remembers he must release the Shadow Force, yet it feels like an impossible task while being swarmed by the dark energy engulfing his entire form. Jyn struggles to achieve a state of perfect calmness, and in a moment of clarity, he finally purges the agonizing pain from his system. Miraculously, he sustained no physical wounds, but his body is still thrumming with a dangerous overflow of the Shadow Force. With the last dregs of his strength, he forces himself to get up and save Mesa. Suddenly, he detects the presence of an unknown man. The stranger assures him that he holds no allegiance to Cancelo. In a surprising twist, he reveals himself to be Sieber, the very man they were tasked to find. Jyn explains that he is here to rescue him on behalf of the Runandell family. Upon hearing this news, Sieber erupts in joyous celebration. After securing Mesa, Jyn asks how Sieber fell into Kinselo's clutches, and he explains that he had once found a lover. Tragically, she passed away 2 years prior, so he was utterly shocked to see the very same woman, who then proceeded to deceive him, leading directly to his capture. Hearing this tale, Jyn instantly deduces that this must be the sinister work of a transfigurator. Sieber's capture is clearly linked to a coordinated attack by both Bubar and Kinselo. Jyn now hopes to confront this transfigurator soon to uncover their true intentions. As for Sieber, he feels an immense debt to Jyn for his role in the rescue mission and vows to help him in the future. With their objective secured, the mission is finally complete, and Jill congratulates Jyn upon his safe return. But before he can relax, a devious little cat sinks its teeth into his hand. In a swift response, Jyn unceremoniously tosses the feline out the window. Murakhan, however, is furious that Jyn got so far ahead of himself, activating the sword long before he was ready. He shakes Solderet's last contractor like a rag doll, scolding him for being reckless enough to risk his life. It's almost as if being reincarnated has made him forget his own mortality. When Jilly tries to intervene, Murakhan shuts her down as well. Jyn counters that he didn't want to needlessly waste his precious pendant, especially with far more powerful enemies awaiting them. Beyond that, he's also curious how Murakhan instantly knew about the sword's awakening. The dragon explains it's because Jin's proficiency with the Shadow Force skyrocketed the moment he activated the blade. He warns that surviving a Shadow Force overload is no simple feat. 9 out of the 11 previous users succumbed and crumbled to dust. The only 2 ever to withstand it are Murakhan and now, Jyn. Still, the boy shudders, fearing he might have to endure that terrifying level of pain ever again. The mighty dark dragon then lightens the mood by requesting a strawberry pie, only to feel utterly devastated when his plea is denied. Meanwhile, word of Jin's victory over the white werewolf has begun to spread, raising a great deal of suspicion. It's public knowledge that Jin's ability is only ranked at about 3 stars, making a victory against such a beast seem utterly impossible. Anna theorizes that the monster he fought must have been a weaker specimen. However, Mew refuses to buy that simple explanation. The truth of what this reborn man hides is far more complex. They both turn to the Htona twins, demanding a proper explanation. They press them, wondering if Jyn truly managed to defeat a monster that was so far out of his league. Then there's the fact that he's now been promoted to the intermediate class, a promotion which means both Htona and Deatona are about to eat their own words. Mew and Anne can't help but find their predicament absolutely hilarious. Anne shoots the twins a piercing glare, giving them a sharp warning not to even think about lying. The brothers finally confess that they are now deathly afraid of Jyn. Seeing their terror, Anne prepares to help these 2 clowns navigate their upcoming trials. Meanwhile, the intermediate class continues to thrive. Based on the principle of survival of the fittest, only the absolute elite remain, ranging from cadets at the 3-star to the 5-star levels. As for Anne and Mew, they've turned a number of these cadets into their personal pawns, ready to deploy them to Htona and Deatona in their scheme to defeat Jyn. The perspective then shifts back to our protagonist, who has now reached 4 stars in Shadow Force as a result of completing his mission. Unleashing his full power carries an imminent risk, so Jyn aims to achieve 6-star swordsmanship within the next few years of his life. He hopes to become an exceptional swordsman before ascending to rank 7 as a master. However, the clan's strongest swordsmen are all 8-star knights or above. In fact, there are only 100 of these brilliant knights on a continent with a population of 2 billion, but the power scale goes even higher. One class exists beyond even 10 stars, the divine star level of the Patriarch Tun, who has achieved the strength of a demigod. That is Jin's ultimate goal. He aspires to climb to the heights of a divine star knight to surpass his father, but for now, his immediate objective is to handle the intermediate class. The Htona twins are guaranteed to cause him significant trouble, quite apart from the rest of his siblings. The novice class was easy and supportive because they were all new, but when it comes to the intermediate class, the entire game changes. The only measure of worth is raw power and skill. Jin's objective is straightforward. He will dominate the intermediate class and make his presence known. He is then summoned to a meeting with his mother, who congratulates him on the successful completion of his first mission. At the same time, she has learned from her butler that Jyn refused to stay in the new room. This special chamber is designed for those who are destined to become the Patriarch. The room has been empty for some time, so she wants Jyn to use it. However, her son declines the offer, stating that it's merely a room and that he has no fondness for spacious quarters. He is perfectly satisfied with what he currently has. Hearing this answer, she dismisses him. Rosa is left utterly confused by the boy's ambitions, unable to discern if he is full of ambition or devoid of it. A classic enigma a reborn Manhwa hides so well. It was obvious that acquiring the room would have granted him brilliant support from the clan, but at the same time, it would have painted a massive target on his back for his siblings. The offer was a test, and our reincarnated protagonist aced it, perfectly meeting his mother's expectations. Jyn then returns to inform the novice cadets about the various factions that are interconnected within the intermediate class. Since these new cadets will now be considered a part of Jin's faction, they are certain to face intense scrutiny and harassment. But their leader has no intention of simply sitting back and watching. He plans to conquer the intermediate class immediately. As a precaution, Jyn advises them to remain on their guard and to always be accompanied by an ally. The following day, Jyn Runandell, a seasoned 8-star knight and also the younger brother of the Patriarch, delivers his speech to the cadets newly promoted to the intermediate class. Jed makes it clear he will not be involved in any of their serious affairs and exists solely to evaluate their swordsmanship. He then roars his message to brutally remind the newcomers of their cold motto: strength is the only thing that matters, so anyone deemed weak will be discarded from the clan. Jin immediately senses that this is a deliberate attempt to intimidate the freshmen. He spots the Htona twins and also notices an unusual-looking warrior standing next to them. For some reason, his intuition tells him that Anne and Mew are operating from behind the scenes. Mesa watched as Jin strode directly toward the Htona twins, creating a scene to intimidate the newcomers. He then unsheathed his blade and, in a flash, slashed the man standing beside them, severing the man's arm to everyone's absolute shock. It was a brutal message from Jin, emphasizing that he, not they, was the one in control. When demanded to identify himself, the cadet states his name is Kazan Romero, and the Htona twins' attempt to intervene is cut short by Jin's warning glare. Pushed by fury, one of the brothers accidentally reveals the cadets' allegiance to their faction. This was precisely the confession Jin had been waiting for, and he provoked them further by claiming he'd maimed the man for a petty reason. The war between the Runandell siblings had officially ignited, and Jed realized the twins' trap had spectacularly backfired. With Kazan's allegiance exposed, Jin's act transformed from a selfish mistake into the opening move of the War of Ranks, a clan tradition. The full scope of his plan, which a reborn Manhwa hides until the perfect moment, was now clear. Seizing the moment, Jin bellows his name, making it loud and clear for all to hear. He issues a stark reminder to the intermediate class: he would not hesitate to cut down anyone who showed him hostility. This brazen defiance, however, pitted him directly against the formidable 8-star knight, his uncle Jed, who was infuriated by his words. Jin declared he was contesting Jed's decisions, and the offended 8-star knight materialized his weapon, vowing to kill the boy if his justification was weak. Jin countered that Jed, as the class leader, was responsible for allowing the attack to be perpetrated in the first place. Hearing this, the powerful knight thrust his blade toward Jin's face, grazing his cheek as a final warning. The young master remained unfazed, emphasizing that he took no offense by the act. He explained that he didn't challenge Jed head-on because he knew he would lose. Otherwise, he would have attacked from the very beginning. Jed reminded the boy that he wouldn't hesitate to cut him down, even if he was the son of the patriarch. Jin responded by acknowledging his opponent's superior strength, but holding his ground, stating that a true Runandell never backs down when honor is on the line. Jed laughed, finding the boy's audacity surprisingly pleasing, and acknowledged Jin's place within the Runandell clan. He presented Jin as the perfect example of what a true Runandell should be. And with that, the session was at last dismissed. As Jin walked away, he left the Htona twins with a chilling piece of advice. He promised a time would come when they would fear him more than their own older siblings. Back in his room, Jin explained the War of Ranks to Jilly and Murakan. He was certain that Miyu and Anne were the true puppet masters, and his reincarnated insight told him they were manipulating events from behind the scenes. The man he had slashed, Tae Cadet, was once part of Anne's faction before suspiciously joining the twins. It was impossible for them to have 5-star knights in their group, as the leaders themselves were not that powerful. While Jilly couldn't comprehend Anne and Miyu's intentions, Jin was glad to finally be seen as a true enemy and rival. He knew they would abuse their power, manipulating the difficulty of his missions to ensure he would fail. But beyond that, there was very little they could do to stop him directly. Jin was more than capable of fending off their threats in individual operations, and that was exactly what he intended to do. Knowing he'd be forced into difficult missions, he saw it as an opportunity to stack up wins and grow exponentially stronger, especially since he could take Murakan with him. For security purposes, Murakan was assigned a different role. The next day, Jin and the Htona twins found themselves summoned to a meeting with their uncle. There, they were informed of the exclusive training privileges they would receive as pure-blooded heirs of the Runandell family. This training, they were warned, would be incredibly difficult, as it was designed to embody the very character and motto of the Runandell clan. The Runandell fighting style is completely devoid of standard swordsmanship, utilizing special moves reserved only for the clan's flag bearers to master. This highly unorthodox combat style is what sets them apart from all other clans, and Jin correctly predicts that it's because the inherent physical abilities of the Runandells are entirely unique. Their very bloodline grants them a god-given talent for sword mastery. It's as if this special ability is written into their very being. In stark contrast to this, their initial training would be focused on deceptively simple movements. The task was merely to hold a steel ball, yet Jin immediately sensed something was off. He could feel something was inside them. These steel balls, they learned, were called singing stones, and they generate specific sounds with each strike. Jed provided a demonstration, striking the ball and producing a sharp clang so loud it was nearly deafening. Then, the Commander Knight struck it a second time, revealing a twist. A beautiful melodic sound echoed through the room, proving that each sound depended on how hard the ball was struck. Their objective was to strike it perfectly every time to release that beautiful sound with each and every blow. Jin immediately realized that this was an incredibly effective training method for the Runandells, but even so, it seemed far too simple to be called a secret training method, the kind of deadly test a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides in plain sight. As Jed attempted to produce the third and final sound, Jin watched with intense curiosity as the blade hit the stone, and in that instant, he understood the terrifying effect. Jin forcefully pushed his brothers away just as the steel ball violently exploded into oblivion. The Htona twins were completely stunned, while Jed was deeply impressed by the boys' sharp senses. He explained that the stones will always explode when struck with too much power, which meant their very lives were at risk in the name of this training. Jed then nonchalantly explained that all of their older siblings had experienced the exact same explosive effects. Jyn, ever inquisitive, wanted to know how Luna had been able to dodge the blast. Jed's explanation was shocking. She didn't even try to dodge, choosing instead to face the full destruction of the explosion. Apparently, she was so powerful in her defenses that the blast didn't even hurt her. This answer left not just Jyn, but also his brothers completely and utterly speechless. The power of having such a monstrously overpowered older sister was beyond comprehension. Jed then assigned them their mission. They were to train until they could create that beautiful, melodic sound at will. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to Luna, who has just learned about Jin's recent assassination attempt. While she was aware of Mayu and Anne's tendency to play dangerous games, she also knew they weren't foolish enough to attack him within the safety of the Storm Castle. Furthermore, their own lives would be at stake if the Patriarch were to uncover their scheme. Luna's maid raised the possibility that the boy might have lied to her back then, pointing out that it was certainly possible since he was so young and they had yet to find any trace of the assassination attempt over the past 5 years. Luna, however, remembered him being extremely cautious of her, and recalling the look on his face, she could tell that his words were absolutely genuine. With that, Luna instructed her maid to keep a close eye on Miu and Anne's various schemes. She couldn't help but wonder what Jyn was truly up to, especially when she recalled her own harrowing experience with the pirate singing stones. The scene shifts to the very next day, where Jyn is struggling just to maintain his posture, finding this to be the toughest training he has ever been a part of in his entire existence. With Jed supervising their every move, it was clear our boy had been severely mistaken in underestimating this trial. Training had nothing to do with their physical prowess. Instead, it was focused entirely on augmenting one's aura, and Jyn had to amplify his aura to compensate for his deficit in raw strength. He focused on remaining perfectly calm, knowing it wasn't an impossible task, as the Htona twins had somehow managed to complete it in his previous life. Jed observed each sibling struggling, but only Jyn was showing the most significant progress among the three. It was entirely possible he would shatter Luna's record for the singing stones. The training session concluded with the Htona twins on the verge of complete collapse. Jed was nonetheless impressed by their endurance. As for Jyn, his dear uncle was almost insulted that he was the youngest sibling, because this boy was an absolute diamond in the making. The man was rapidly becoming his nephew's #1 fan. A month passed. The intermediate class was finally being assigned its very first missions. The primary mission was to safeguard the recruits of the Mingxi Blacksmith Guild. Each faction received their assignments until finally, it was Jin's faction's turn. This group of 10 cadets was tasked with slaying an enormous horde of 25 orcs, nearly double their own number. It was hardly the easiest mission, especially since they had only just joined the intermediate class. A steep challenge, ****reborn Manhwa hides **** for its **** reincarnated **** hero. It was clear many of them wouldn't survive. The other factions began mocking Jin's group precisely as he had predicted they would. Mesa cut her comrades off from arguing, demanding that they maintain their composure. As Runandells, they had no say in the missions they were given. The only path forward was to execute them perfectly. Mesa was determined to silence their detractors for good by achieving a stunning victory. In a fit of rage, Deatona ended up striking a singing stone so hard that it exploded directly in front of him. Jyn barely dodged the initial explosion before being clipped by the blast. He refused to train around these buffoons, as they were utterly careless about their surroundings. While the Htona twins were busy detonating stones, something strange was happening to Jyn. His senses sharpened to such a degree that it felt like he could perceive an object coming from a mile away. At this point, he was completely confident in his ability to evade the steel pellets should the singing stones ever explode again. Jyn began to wonder if this training was somehow connected to the mind's eye training he had done with Luna. To confirm his suspicions, he decided to try again, but Jed burst into their training session to inform them about the new missions. The Htona twins were seething, as their assignment was a mere ceremony with the Vimeth Empire. It wasn't a life-threatening mission, but it would be an exhausting one. Jed emphasized the importance of undertaking the mission with the utmost seriousness, no matter the task. It was an event where powerful warriors, including the Runandells, would gather. Jed wanted the Htona twins to get a clear measure of those people. Jin's mission, however, was entirely different. He was assigned an assassination mission. Jyn had to eliminate Terrace's cherished lover. The secret palace referred to the giant tower controlled by the rulers. The current rulers were named Terrace and Dorma, a woman so deadly that she showed zero mercy to anyone who harmed her lovers. Jyn was given a full briefing on the immense threat of this mission. His target was a man named Alcaro, who was protected around the clock by the agents of the secret palace. What's more, this kind of high-stakes assignment is usually given to guardian knights, a fact that explained Htona and Deatona's shocked reactions. Jyn, however, was intrigued by the request. He wondered if the Chandra family genuinely wanted him to assassinate someone of their own kin. Jed reveals his family made countless attempts to bring Alcaro back, all to protect the clan's sensitive information. Secrets. Having exhausted all other avenues, they put out a high-stakes contract to neutralize him. Jyn, with the resolve of one who has been reincarnated for this very purpose, accepts the mission with unwavering conviction. stunning Jed, who knows the task is far beyond Jin's current capabilities. Intrigued, Jed decides to humor his answer, giving the trio a deadline of 3 days to prepare. Meanwhile, the Htona twins are genuinely concerned for Jin's survival as they grasp the immense danger involved. They suggest he reveal his Runandell identity, believing the family name alone would offer some protection and be enough to see him through. Our protagonist is taken aback by their concern, and in that moment, he perfectly cleaves the steel ball, letting out a soft, clear chime. Jyn has already reached a level of mastery, and upon his return, the Htona twins will have no choice but to align with him. Even Jed acknowledges that following Jyn is their only logical path forward, as their very lives will be on the line otherwise. At last, the day of the mission arrives. Jin's destination is the notoriously perilous Mammoth Lawless region. The young Runandell master has adopted a subtle disguise, a common trope a reborn Manhwa hides behind to conceal his true power and identity. Ostensibly, Jin's team is there to handle some monsters, but he's unaware they're about to face a horde of 25 orcs. All of them are despondent about the mission, having already resigned themselves to their fate. Jyn, however, declares that he will absolutely return, no matter the cost. Watching from afar, Gilly finds his subordinates' worry for him rather endearing. While Murakan tries to boast about his past glory as the Great Dark Dragon, completely forgetting he's currently in the form of a simple house cat, Jyn just wants Gilly to relax and enjoy a well-deserved break while he's away. She voices her own worries, reminding him that Mammoth is an incredibly lethal place. Jyn reassures her of his return and then departs. The Mammoth region is a festering pit, home to the most degenerate criminals imaginable. These individuals thrive on pure toxicity and malice. Jyn has arrived to put them all in their place. The locals have never laid eyes on him before, yet he carries himself with an audacious air, as if he already owns the entire town. One of the thugs speculates aloud if he's a 9-star knight in disguise and tries to school the newcomer on the established pecking order. But Jyn has no patience for such trivial posturing. With a single, swift motion, he ends the man's tirade permanently, sending a cold wave of fear through the crowd. These criminals feel no sense of loss for their fallen comrade. They are a cold-blooded lot, and just as his teacher instructed, Jyn is making it clear that he is not someone to be trifled with. He feels a sense of gratitude for his master's guidance. Jyn accepts a drink, completely unfazed by the possibility of it being laced with something nasty, and tosses down his payment before ordering his breakfast. The bartender, sensing an agenda, asks if he's searching for someone. Jyn confirms this and inquires about a person named Hister. Unfortunately, no one by that name is known in town. Jyn then asks for lodging, and the bartender suggests the Moonlight. Well, a secure inn reserved for the so-called kings of Mammoth. It's an establishment of pure luxury. Given that Alcaro is a wealthy scion, he has never had to concern himself with the minor struggles of life. He's essentially a buffoon who cannot rein in his hedonistic desires. Alcaro is only lingering in this place to win the favor of its ruler, but it's a futile effort, as her attention has already shifted to a new amusement. With only one location left that offers both pleasure and protection, it's obvious that Alcaro will be surrounded by a swarm of guards. Jyn decides to post up in the lobby to get a clear vantage point of the entire situation. And interestingly enough, he spots Alcaro almost instantly, locked in a heated argument with his own men, as the guards refuse to leave his side, him alone. But Alcaro is completely consumed by his own lust. He goes as far as threatening their lives, only to be met with a swift, heavy punch that sends him into unconsciousness. They've had enough of babysitting this obsessive clown, whose madness has become a liability. Obsession. Each of Alcaro's guards is a powerhouse, easily surpassing the 6-star threshold. The assassination itself should be simple in theory. But the real challenge lies in the escape. Poisoning someone in Mammoth is nearly impossible, making a clean getaway incredibly difficult. A direct confrontation is out of the question with Alcaro's men on watch. Jyn is backed into a corner, until a brilliant, almost reincarnated idea sparks in his mind. He devises the perfect solution to his predicament. The very next day, our attention shifts to Ciri and Dorma, the daughter of the ruler. She receives a report that 6 formidable guards are protecting Alcaro, a man she considers nothing more than a complete. Ironically, she was also prepared to end him, having grown utterly weary of his insufferable antics. As they were drawing near the inn, a colossal bolt of lightning descended from the heavens, completely obliterating the building. Terrace's daughter is thrilled by this, sensing there's a deeper story at play. Now, returning to Jin's master plan, he had opted to unleash a magical assault, amplifying its power by layering his shadow force over it. This complex technique would help forge a powerful 6-star magic spell, potent enough to sell the illusion that a formidable mage was attacking them. No one would ever suspect the boy, particularly since the greatest sorcery prodigy, Veradine Zyphel, had only just attained the 6-star level herself. Jyn needed to make certain the attack appeared to originate from outside, which prompted his decision to use a lightning-based assault. Wielding his mastery over Shadow Force, he released its energy and manifested his devastating lightning powers. The cataclysmic thunderbolt struck the settlement before anyone could react, their immediate suspicion pointing them to the conclusion that this was the work of a sorcerer. Ciri quickly assessed the gravity of the situation, wanting to protect her guards, even if that scumbag Alcaro perished. Yet, the instant they attempted to approach, the residual energy of the thunderbolt violently threw them back. They began to wonder if the Zyphel sorcerers were exacting their revenge against the secret palace. Then, a third thunderbolt struck the settlement. Siri surmised there wouldn't be a fourth attack, desperately hoping no one was seriously injured. Unfortunately, during this dangerous gambit, Jyn himself sustained massive injuries, having to endure the backlash from his own powerful spell. Though the guards were still alive, Alcaro was nowhere to be seen. Jyn needed to confirm the execution while he had the chance, but regrettably, Siri spotted him in his injured state and rushed to help. She couldn't care less about Alcaro's well-being and, in fact, preferred his permanent execution. Siri also demanded the capture of the sorcerer responsible. It's a classic trope where the truth of a reincarnated, reborn Manhwa hides in plain sight. And Jyn was glad that he wouldn't have to do the dirty work of killing Alcaro himself, not with her and her entire squad present, but there would be immense trouble if she recognized his identity as a Runandell. The guards then returned to inform them of Alcaro's confirmed death from the lethal spell. With him gone, Siri, as the daughter of the ruler Taris, immediately seized control of the Moonlight Well. Her declaration was met with immediate objections, as she was challenged by the local crooks of Mammoth. In response, Siri showed her absolute dominance, swiftly cutting them down with her formidable icicle blade. She announced plans to compensate for the damages if the sorcerer's true goal was to attack the secret palace, but she also vowed to utterly ruin them if their target had been Alcaro all along, one of the culprits. Siri immediately seizes control of the inn, her sights now set on the sorcerer responsible for the attack. It's painfully obvious that one of the survivors must have cast the spell, and she's furious they provoked such a dangerous foe. Meanwhile, Sirius grows increasingly irritated with Jyn's slow progress, even calling him a coward, yet she still tends to his leg injury, an act of kindness a commoner could boast about for a whole century. Sirius figures this goofball could never repay her, so she decides to give him an experience he'll never forget. Jyn innocently waves her off, but the moment she's gone, his entire demeanor shifts and he locks in completely. He has successfully completed his objective while simultaneously covering his tracks. The scene then shifts to the ongoing battle against the orcs, where Mesa and her team have just felled one, sparking a fleeting, delusional confidence that they might just overcome the challenge without suffering any casualties. But Mesa was far more serious. With 7 more targets left to eliminate, she didn't want to get sloppy. What's truly unsettling is the orcs' bizarre behavior. They typically swarm their prey in groups, but strangely, each one is fighting alone. Mesa speculates that Jyn's blessing must be aiding them in this mission. While they're all focused on the task at hand, Murakhan is just thrilled he'll finally be off the hook. The reason for the orcs' strange conduct is actually quite simple. Murakhan had threatened to utterly obliterate them if they dared to act otherwise. The orcs were so terrified that they scattered and never regrouped. Unfortunately, the cat dragon suspects he'll be saddled with even more of these tedious quests down the line. All Murakhan wants in exchange for his service is to kick back and read some comic books. He's relieved that everyone is still in one piece. But in that moment, even Murakhan senses an incredible dark energy he hadn't predicted at all. A monstrous presence is stomping its way directly toward Mesa's group. Murakhan quickly deploys a powerful shadow barrier that goes completely unnoticed by everyone except for Velop. Within this concealment, he transforms into his true form to annihilate the monster that dares to cast its energy without his consent. The tomb giants, a species thought to have been driven to extinction nearly 2 millennia ago, have reappeared, and Murakhan struggles to comprehend why this creature has shown up now. He gathers a deadly beam of energy and completely obliterates the beast with a towering column of pure darkness. With the monster vanquished, Murakhan feels a profound tension throughout his body. He hasn't exerted this much power in a very long time, and he's certain the Zipfels are somehow involved with the tomb giant's sudden appearance. These bizarre coincidences are piling up, but he has no interest in telling Jyn just yet. After all, Murakhan understands that since Jyn is reincarnated the time will inevitably come for him to confront the Zipfel clan on his own. The perspective then shifts to the Transfigurator, who is left utterly aghast that his creation, the tomb giant, was destroyed in an instant. He's seething at the outcome, but Bishkul is worried about something far more pressing. The Shadow Dragon itself took responsibility for destroying the creature, which felt like a direct warning to them. Bishkul now insists on meeting with the Zipfels immediately. Back with the Run Candles, Jed feels a surge of pride following Jin's spectacular return. It serves as a crushing humiliation for the flag bearers who assign him that supposedly impossible mission. The intermediate class is promptly dismissed, and Jyn catches up with his friends, learning that they too were successful in their own endeavors. However, most of the intermediate knights are seething with jealousy, believing the pureblood Runkandel is simply armed with god-tier luck. They are bitter about being hard-stuck in their ranks, unaware that this reborn Manhwa hides his true power as they mock him for being a mere 4-star knight in their eyes. Yet, despite his apparent arrogance, his pureblood status made him untouchable. They could only wait for their next orders from Mew and Anne, but Jyn, far from avoiding them, strolled right into the lion's den, a smirk playing on his lips, announcing that he'd heard every single word. He directly taunted Kazin, who brazenly admitted to badmouthing him. Jyn then acknowledged that he didn't officially hold a higher rank than the rest of them. Kazin scoffed, utterly fed up with Jyn, whom he believed only completed the mission due to sheer luck. Jyn, however, made his intentions crystal clear. He openly conceded that a 5-star knight should technically outclass his own rank as a mere 4-star knight. But instead of a war of words, Jyn challenged Kazin to a duel, right then and there, fully permitting the use of aura. Kazin, believing he was about to snatch an easy victory, lunged forward to attack Jyn, who could sense the desperation in every swing. Meanwhile, Jyn, with the calm of a warrior seemingly reincarnated from a past life of battle, had faced far stronger foes and wasn't even remotely intimidated. Kazin pushed to end the fight quickly, boasting that he was clearly the superior of the two fighters. Jyn parried the blade, but the force of Kazin's aura still struck him. At last, he began to perfectly match the trajectory of every attack, mapping out every possible combination that could be made with a sword. Jyn perceived each incoming blow with unnerving clarity. Fortunately for him, his opponent was fueled by pure rage, rendering him blind to the subtle shifts in the battle. With a sharp clash of steel, Jyn prepared to conclude the fight with absolute conviction. He openly mocked his opponent's predictability, stating he had zero chance of victory. 3 critical moves followed in Kazin's desperate flurry. Jyn countered each one effortlessly and readied the final blow. He then unleashed a devastating aura slash that completely overwhelmed Kazin, snatching the victory right from under him. Jyn was now certain of his own power. He had improved on a massive scale, finally entering the domain of a true 5-star knight. His entire plan was to mislead his opponent into thinking he was inferior, a classic strategy where the reborn Manhwa hides its true power to exploit openings. The Htona twins arrived on the scene completely baffled, but Jyn didn't give the fight a second thought, simply turning and walking away casually. When a humiliated Kazin reported back to his faction leaders, they initially dismissed it as a joke. They were absolutely stunned that the boy had already reached a 5-star knight's level at such a tender age. Both Miyu and Anne understood the hostile message Jyn had just sent to their faction. They began preparing to mobilize stricter measures to eliminate him during his next mission. Meanwhile, the clan was buzzing with murmurs about Jin's sudden surge in strength. Only the absolute best of the best in their clan's history had achieved this level at his age. In truth, even Jyn himself hadn't predicted this explosive level of growth. He hadn't focused on refining his sword mastery outside of his special training. It seemed that growth in one area of his training was affecting all the other aspects. Improving his shadow force had a synergistic effect, enhancing his aura and mana flow as well. He was the only one in his entire clan to have mastered all 3 of these distinct powers. Back in his room, Jyn noticed a bouquet of flowers he'd never seen before, but he didn't mind, as they appeared to be harmless. Regarding his latest achievement, Jyn was certain it would only make his siblings even more anxious to get rid of him. Joshua was chief among them. He became a prime candidate for the throne the moment Luna gave up her own pursuit to become the patriarch. Now, Joshua was actively working to improve his strategic position within the clan, with their mother's full support. Initially, Jyn had planned to conceal his true abilities, but he'd since changed his mind. It was now clear that the entire clan would soon know about his accomplishments. But this wasn't about gloating. Jin's true goal was to make his father finally take notice. Sirinahe was never truly satisfied with Joshua's ascension to the throne. His first choice was Luna, but she lacked the necessary ambition and walked away from power despite her incredible talents. With Luna out of the picture, Joshua became the next in line by default. This all transpired long before Jyn began to reveal his own accomplishments, proving his worthiness for the throne. Jyn anticipates that his father will undoubtedly put him through a rigorous and difficult trial. Furthermore, he suspects his father might even arrange personal protection to safeguard him from any potential ambushes prior to the test. He knows that thanks to Karen's clever machinations, he'll be able to navigate the wrath of his siblings. Understanding that a grand banquet will be held to celebrate his father's return, Jyn is anticipating significant developments. Indeed, just a few days following this conversation, invitations from powerful clans across the realm began to flood in. Jyn, meanwhile, had maintained a carefully peaceful existence around the flag bearers. They wouldn't dare risk a direct assault while he's in the public eye, sharing the limelight with them. The Runandell family's very reputation would be jeopardized in such a scenario. Suddenly, Petro bursts in, carrying urgent news about Jin's newest mission. It turns out their mother, Rosa, is absolutely infuriated, utterly disappointed by her other children's treachery. They were audacious enough to send Jyn to his certain doom by assigning him a mission deep within the hostile Zeal territory. Just then, Jyn himself crashes the tense gathering with his timely appearance, catching Lunia, Ran, and Vuego off guard as they glance at their youngest brother. Their mother, Rosa, acts immediately and cancels the mission, instantly shattering Anne and Miyu's wicked plans.